So today we are diving into the revolutionary world of vertical indoor farming, focusing on how sustainable technology is transforming urban agriculture and addressing food insecurity.
When I started the company, what our original goal was to feed people in a better way. And for those who don't know, Moldova is a tiny country in Eastern Europe, right on the border of Ukraine. And they're in a situation with the terrible war going on in Ukraine. They've got essentially permanent refugees.
Now, let's dive deeper into how these impactful initiatives can drive the future of sustainable urban living and strengthen local food systems. Now, Chris, Just Vertical's commercial division is launching large-scale indoor farms for diverse applications globally.
We were recently just down in Connecticut, and for a little bit of context on the organization there, we're working with an organization called CW Resources, and their mandate is focused on employing folks with disabilities. And I think the biggest thing that in particular saw down there was that obviously growing the produce is fantastic and getting it to the market is fantastic and eliminating these food deserts that we speak about, but the employment side and the community side that these farms are able to engage in urban centers, I think is absolutely massive.
Hello there, entrepreneurs and innovators. Are you passionate about sustainable solutions and making a real difference? Remember, clean technology and strategic partnerships can create meaningful, tangible change in communities worldwide. Hi, this is Kripa Anand, and welcome to the CanadianSME Small Business Podcast, where we explore the innovative solutions and inspiring entrepreneurial journeys that are tackling global challenges. So today we are diving into the revolutionary world of vertical indoor farming, focusing on how sustainable technology is transforming urban agriculture and addressing food insecurity. Now, recent trends highlight the urgent demand for sustainable food production methods, the critical need for food sovereignty in vulnerable communities, and the opportunities for clean tech hardware businesses to scale and make a tangible impact. This discussion today will provide valuable insights into these crucial areas. Joining us today are Connor Tidd, co-founder, and Christopher Di Grazia, head of marketing and growth at Just Vertical, a company that crafts and distributes state-of-the-art sustainable vertical hydroponic systems, revolutionizing urban agriculture. So without further ado, let's dive in. Firstly, welcome to both of you. It's a pleasure to have you guys here.
Yeah, thanks. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. You nailed the surname as well, so great job.
I try my best. Now, let's start the conversation by a little warm-up, right? So, Connor, I'd love for you to discuss, you recently visited Moldova, right, to build an indoor farm to support Ukrainian refugees. Please go ahead and share that story behind this impactful initiative and how exactly Just Vertical's technology is helping these displaced communities reclaim food sovereignty.
Yeah, it was a really impactful mission for me. You know, when I started the company, what our original goal was to feed people in a better way.
Right.
And for those who don't know, Moldova is a tiny country in Eastern Europe, right on the border of Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in a situation with, the terrible war going on in
Right.
Ukraine. They've got essentially permanent refugees there now. And when you're doing international food aid, it's really easy to distribute things like rice, potatoes, beans, dried
Right.
goods.
Right.
But for these impacted communities, they don't have access to fresh food to cook the things they traditionally would.
Mm-hmm.
So we partnered with local charity Global Medic and actually went over there and installed a vertical farm with a partner charity on the ground there, so that people not only have a way to grow their own food year round because it gets really cold there like it does in Canada,
Right.
but it also provides gainful employment for the refugees. So it's really cool to see the technology having an impact. And I think it speaks to the ability of the technology in the company. If we can get people growing halfway around the world, we're able to do it anywhere.
Wow, that's a very, incredibly powerful and moving story, I'd say. Do you have anything to add to that?
I think just to kind of to riff a little bit off what Connor said, I think that to see the impact that we were having in Moldova, and particularly the people that it was affecting, because both Connor and I went over there for the installation.
Mm-hmm.
was something really unique, and you don't necessarily get exposed to that. So,
That's it.
the product that we're offering is obviously, without getting too cliche about it, we're trying to revolutionize food systems and everything like that. But when you actually see the difficulty and the challenges that these people have gone through, it really makes everything worthwhile. I know Connor started the organization for that reason, and we were so thrilled to be over there and achieve what we achieved. So.
No, definitely. You guys, in a way, are doing God's work, right? So, kudos to you guys for thinking about something so impactful, yet something that, literally everyone needs to do in today's time, and no one is really talking about it. Now, the project in Moldova underscores the potential of indoor farming, right? Let's broaden our discussion to the future of this industry as a whole. Now, the future of food production is shifting towards more sustainable and resilient models, offering exciting possibilities for how we meet global food demands. Now, Chris, looking beyond specific projects, what do you envision as the future of indoor farming on a general basis?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, and I think indoor farming, more generally speaking, in the public mind, is at a little bit of a crossroads because there has been some bankruptcies in our industry fairly recently.
Right.
I think the role of indoor farming, and I'd be curious to hear Connor's opinion straight after this, but the role of indoor farming is really to play, is to complement what we have with traditional agriculture rather than obsolete traditional agriculture. And I think where you see this being particularly relevant is in urban centres. So, we're obviously here in or fairly close to downtown Toronto.
Right.
You'd be surprised to learn that there are food deserts specifically within Toronto. And we were just down in Hartford, Connecticut, doing a project there.
Right.
And there are some significant, challenges that they face in the United States with food deserts, but they're in urban centres. So I think what we'll see is traditional agriculture will continue to supply a lot of what we get at the grocery store. But I think solutions such as indoor farming will provide and help provide solutions in those areas where those food deserts exist, where traditional agriculture can't necessarily fill that gap, either logistically or economically speaking. So that's kind of where I think the direction is going.
Very interesting.
Yeah, I think it's resiliency.
Right.
With the way climate change is going, we're facing more challenges than ever
Right.
as farmers and feeding the planet. And we're never going to be growing the big row crops like the wheat, the corn, the
Right.
canola, the soy. We're really going to be growing the stuff that's ready to eat. And it's okay if we can help out a little bit by adding some resiliency and building a farm that's not vulnerable to, hailstorms, tornadoes, hurricanes. It really just helps strengthen our food system, and that's the role we have to play.
That's a very forward-thinking vision. If I were to ask you, say, in the next 10 years or 15 years, how exactly do you envision the future of Just Vertical? What do you say?
Yeah, I'd say we're going to be growing quickly. Even over the long term, I think the current political situation has brought out, okay,
Right.
how reliant can Canada be on a global supply chain? Something like lettuce, we import 93% of our leafy greens here in Canada.
Right.
Vertical farming and indoor growing opens up the opportunity to say, okay, we can have Canadian homegrown lettuce. Like, we've got ways to do this even when it's negative 30 outside. And
Right.
quite frankly, it's a nice job to have when it's cold outside, to be working in the farm in your shorts and a t-shirt.
Right.
So I think we can build a much more resilient future and resilient communities that have a way to feed themselves and are less vulnerable to the supply chain shocks, whether, it's politics or what we saw with COVID or natural disasters, right? We need to make sure we've got a secure food future.
I think the direction of Just Vertical as well, and Connor kind of touched on this point a little bit, but it very much ties in with the future of our climate.
Right.
And particularly, I think the natural direction people go in Canada in particular is thinking that cold weather, this is a great solution for cold weather.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really interesting in terms of all the work that we do. We speak a lot to a lot of folks in places like New Mexico or places like Arizona, where it's too hot to grow, where you would traditionally think that, hey, these places would be able to grow produce year round. So I think Just Vertical over the next 15 years, we are going to start seeing our farms pop up in across the entire planet. And it's just purely dependent on how climate changes and climate moves over the next 10 to 15 years, because, I don't know about you, but I envision farms in far northern Canada and in places like Nunavut or the Northwest Territories, but I also see it in my homeland in places like, I'm Australian, in places like Alice Springs and Darwin and other places that you would traditionally think are great for agriculture, but they may not necessarily be so due to the changing climate that we're experiencing.
You painted quite a beautiful picture. I think the idea of decentralized year-round food production is certainly going to be a game changer for food security and sustainability. Hello there, entrepreneurs and innovators. Are you passionate about sustainable solutions and making a real difference? Remember, clean technology and strategic partnerships can create meaningful, tangible change in communities worldwide. Now let's get back to our conversation with Connor and Chris and explore the challenges of scaling a hardware business. Now, Just Vertical is a clean tech hardware business which presents its own set of unique challenges. So I know you touched on one of them, but if you were to really expand on it, what do you think are some of the biggest hurdles and key lessons that you guys have learned, especially when it comes to expanding your operations?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is you've got to be really principled in the way you make the decisions.
Right.
It's too easy these days to just slap a label on it and call it that. It's
Right.
you really got to live and breathe the ethos.
Everyone
of it.
started greenwashing it, as they say.
Exactly, and it's it's hard because sometimes what seems like the economics of a decision might conflict with your morals or the ethical side of it, and kind of a silly example of it that people don't really think about might be packaging, right?
Right.
So when we've got a consumer line of products we sell, when we went through the design process, if we were to build the packaging out of cardboard, local, it's all done in Canada, it's recyclable,
Right.
it's great. It's it's about 15% more expensive, and it's like 30 pieces versus if we build it out of styrofoam,
Right.
it's 3 pieces. It's a lot quicker to assemble, a lot quicker to pack,
Right.
and and it's cheaper. And it's like on the surface, economics say go with the styrofoam. That's kind of the cut and dry decision. But we opted to go for the cardboard, and it might not show up in the Excel spreadsheet, but you hear from customers who say, like, I really like that everything's cardboard, everything's paper. I'm not throwing out tons of plastic,
Right.
After I bought something. So I think one of the biggest things is staying principled in those decisions and having those principles as kind of your guide, beyond just the economics of what's going to drive growth for the company.
How about you?
Yeah, I think, again, Connor, you kind of saying the good big things, and this is where I come in and I kind of compliment him. But I think he said something that's really important to me personally is and I focus on marketing within my role. It's marketing, but it's focusing too much on the spreadsheets and focusing on what is the dollar and cents number with this, whereas there's a lot of intangible benefits to a lot of decisions that may cost a little bit more,
Right.
that ultimately help you scale up. And not everything has to, the other thing that I think, and I'd be curious to see what you think, but also not everything has to scale. You know what I mean? Not everything has to always be scalable, and not everything has to be like done in the intention of turning into this massive multinational corporation. Like, we've made a lot of decisions where we've been like, let's try something out, let's give it a crack, let's see how it goes, and we'll solve the scaling issue once that issue arises. But sometimes you need to balance those short-term priorities of actually like driving revenue, for example, versus like trying to build this massive infrastructure around an organization that ultimately you kind of putting the horse before the cart. So
Yeah, it's far easier to do the right thing now and then figure out how to scale it than to scale it and then try
figure
and
out,
figure out
Yeah,
how to do
exactly,
it right. Yeah.
exactly.
Makes sense, and that's definitely a very practical insight into the complexities of scaling a hardware-based, clean tech company. All right, it's time for a short break, but don't go anywhere. Stay tuned.
Hey, you think you know UPS? Yeah, that's us. Everybody knows that. You know what you didn't know? This. Okay, try to keep up. Ocean, us. Ground, rail, air, so us. Guess who? Us. Customs cleared, borders cleared, done. Us. You still with me? Wait for it. Boom. Us. Intelligent, automated, fulfillment. Us. Yep. Healthcare too. Digital your thing? Yeah? Well, book it, ship it, track it. You feeling me yet? Yep. That's all us. That's all UPS.
Welcome back, listeners. Let's dive into how Just Vertical is making an impact globally with commercial indoor farms, from initiatives like the Red Deer Food Bank to new farms in Connecticut. Now, let's dive deeper into how these impactful initiatives can drive the future of sustainable urban living and strengthen local food systems. Now, Chris, Just Vertical's commercial division is launching large scale indoor farms for diverse applications globally. Can you please go ahead and shed some light on the transformative impact of these farm projects, such as the Red Deer Food Bank initiative or the farm in Connecticut that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, like we were recently just down in Connecticut, and for a little bit of context on the organization there, we're working with an organization called CW Resources, and their mandate is focused on employing folks with disabilities. And I think the biggest thing that I in particular saw down there was that obviously growing the produce is fantastic and getting it to the market is fantastic and eliminating, these food deserts that we speak about.
Right.
But the employment side and the community side that these farms are able to engage in urban centers, I think is absolutely massive. When we were helping them assemble the farm and doing a little bit of consulting work and a little bit of training work while we're down there, we were working with folks that are part of that CW community.
Right.
And, just the joy that they were getting about getting involved in this product that is innovative, that is, sustainable, that is able to provide for the community, I think is something that is really understated. And I think I've noticed it in all the projects that we've worked in. We worked with an organization called Extended Family Care in Kingston, Ontario.
Right.
And it was the same thing, right? Their mandate was very similar. And, the produce that they were growing was going back to their facilities and back into everything that they were doing. But it was really the folks who were involved in their programming, again, folks with disabilities,
Right.
getting involved in the programming and getting involved in growing fresh produce and seeing where their lettuce came from was hugely gratifying. And I think like one of those massive intangible benefits that our commercial division is actually growing into.
Yeah, the more impact we can have with the local community, the
Right.
better, right? It's
Definitely, yeah.
local community is still the backbone of everything.
No, definitely. And these are, shining, inspiring examples of how large scale indoor farming, is directly addressing these critical issues like food insecurity and, of course, creating more employment opportunities as well. Now, beyond large scale farms, Just Vertical also empowers individual growers, right? So, Connor, on a consumer scale, Just Vertical now has over 2,000 plus individuals at, home farmers across North America. How exactly are Ava, Eve, and Eco Living Green Wall Farms empowering individuals to grow fresh, pesticide-free produce in their own homes? And how exactly does this signify for reducing food waste and, increasing food sovereignty at a personal level? Also, before you start, please go ahead and explain the full forms of, those abbreviations that I mentioned, because I'm assuming a lot of lay people would not understand those, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. So we started with the consumer side, and it started out of a personal frustration of mine.
Right.
And it's, I love tacos, love them to death. I eat way too many, and I swear the key to a good taco is all in fresh cilantro. Problem is, you go to the store, it always seems to come in that one size,
Right.
way too big to use at once.
Right.
You end up using like half of it. The rest goes into the fridge, and it's like a moldy, mushy mess 2 days later. So my whole idea was like, okay, how can we grow food in our home so I don't need to go through this problem?
Right.
And at the time, my partner was like, I like these devices you've made at school, because I was doing my master's at the time, but like it doesn't fit in with our decor.
Right.
So the whole idea that myself and my other co-founder Kevin came up with was, how can we take that cool cutting edge science of indoor vertical farming and put it into something that's going to look and feel like it belongs in your home in downtown Toronto?
Wow.
So we've built a line now of 3 indoor gardens that look like a piece of furniture. So they're completely automated. They've got grow lights built into them, a watering tank. They water themselves, come in about 5 different colors. And you can grow your own food right in your living room or in your kitchen. I've seen people put in their basement, their closet, wherever you'd like.
Right.
All you need is
Yeah.
a plug.
Yeah.
And it really has a big impact at home, because you don't have any of the packaging, because it's there. You just cut it off, it goes right into the
Right.
bowl. You don't have any of that transit. And then because we built it as a closed loop system, the water only goes to the plants and then back into the tank. So it's
Got
constantly
it.
recirculating. So it's, 95 to 99% more water efficient and uses way less fertilizer. So you're getting all these really cool benefits while getting like amazing fresh food at home.
Wow.
So, never underestimate the impact that like you can have just in your own kitchen. And it's a lot of fun to do
No,
too.
definitely, and that's a very genius idea as well. Do you have anything to add, or if you want to give a message to the listeners, individuals who are listening to this, how exactly can they be a part of it?
Yeah, they can visit our website and grab one of our gardens, to be honest.
Right.
But I to even go a little bit further than that and just not even, plug our own products or anything like that. But you can start growing at home, right? It's not an overly complicated thing. And I think that, particularly for young folks, old folks, whoever it may be, to have that connection to where your food is coming from is massively important. And Connor's probably going to block his ears for this part. But what I often say is, it's not hard to get going, and you can start at home without purchasing one of our farms. And that's ultimately what we care about. Is we, Connor started this organization and I joined this organization because our mission and our goal is to get people to grow fresh, healthy produce and reduce our reliance on traditional agriculture because of the environmental impacts that Connor, largely touched on. And you can do that by just going down to your local convenience store and picking up one of those little seedlings and just popping it in the soil and getting going and just starting there. Now, if you don't have the space, if you don't have the ability to put something in your garden, or if it's in the middle of winter, then sure, our products are really great for that use case.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it complements, doing it yourself. And I think that ultimately the goal is just go buy something from the convenience store and see where lettuce comes from, see where tomatoes come from, see where carrots come from. I think that is a huge thing.
Amazing. So when it comes to Just Vertical, do you both see eye to eye when it comes to, what exactly the vision is going to be? Or do you have your own take and you have your own take and then you argue about it in a good sense, of course, because every good business needs to have a good argument when it comes to, scaling your operations and growing in true sense. So I'd love to understand the story here.
I think we agree on the vision. It's how you get there where you disagree on. Obviously, Chris heads up marketing, so before we started recording, he's pointing at all the equipment in here. Oh, we should get that. We should get this.
Right.
And I'm holding the purse strings, running the budget, and I'm like, well, not that. So, I think we're agreed on the vision and the mission of the company, and that's kind of non-negotiable for us when we bring people on board.
Right.
But you're always going to have arguments over how to get there
Right.
and what's the best way to do it.
I mean, it's funny. I was thinking the exact same thing. I was literally like, yeah, the vision is like broadly aligned, but again, I'm probably the one who's complaining and he's the one who kind of laughs it off. But I'm always complaining about super little things like, we were also talking about the equipment, but before that I was getting frustrated because like, I think it was probably your emails weren't formatted correctly. And I was like, Connor, you got to format your emails correctly, right? So
every office is the same story.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, we all get along great. We're not a massive organization, right? So we're about 10 or so people, and the core team's been together for 4 or 5 years. Connor and Kevin, the two co-founders, have been working together for 8 years, and
Right.
I think all of us are all completely aligned on the mission and the vision, and we all love working together. And that's an underrated thing in terms of scaling up a hardware business as well, or a software business, or whatever it may be, is
Right.
you want to work with people that you enjoy working with. You want to be aligned in mission, values. Like those things are massively underrated when people pick jobs and pick positions and pick where they work or start organizations. And I think that, I think we've done a pretty good job at that at Just Vertical, because everybody puts up with me complaining all the time.
No,
so.
definitely. And it's visible you guys complement each other in a very amazing way, and I hope the best for both of you. Now, before we let you go, finally, if there's any key takeaway you'd like our listeners to remember about this entire discussion today, what would it be?
Yeah, I'd say it's vertical farming is here. It's real. It's having a great impact. You want to keep up with what we're doing, go to our website, justvertical.com. Follow us on social. We're always trying to share the stories, put out and amplify the impact a lot of these community projects are having.
Amazing.
And yeah, I think, my big thing is, be conscious of where your food comes from. Be conscious of those food decisions you make. And there are tools and different ways to learn how to be your own farmer and be your own gardener. And, there's so many AI tools that are available now that you can use them to kind of get the journey started. And, if we can be one of those organizations that facilitate that, then, reach out to us individually. We're always willing to have a chat through our social media channels or through our website, and have more conversations about people indoor farming, which is or farming more generally, which is what we care about. So.
Wonderful. Just a couple of two guys doing good work, doing God's work. And we at Canadian SME wish you all the very best. So thank you so much for being here and doing this. It was an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. It was great.
All right, that was an insightful conversation with Connor Tidd, co-founder, and Christopher Di Grazia, head of marketing and growth at Just Vertical, on the future of indoor farming, scaling a clean tech hardware business, and their impactful global projects. Just Vertical is revolutionizing urban agriculture with sustainable vertical hydroponic systems, empowering growers to cultivate fresh, nutrient-rich food while combating food insecurity. We also want to highlight their incredible growth and transformative farm projects in Moldova, Alberta, and Connecticut. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Canadian SME Small Business Podcast, and we really appreciate your continued support. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast for more expert insights and resources that can help your business thrive. Also, don't forget to visit our website, CanadianSME.ca. And lastly, a very special thank you to our podcast partners, RBC, UPS, A1 Global College, and Google for their ongoing commitment to empowering small businesses. Until next time, keep innovating and striving for success, and we'll see you in the next episode. Kripa Anand signing off.